My girlfriend kept making excuses about not finding a job after moving in with me, then I found out she never actually had a job to begin with. I, 24 male, have been living with my girlfriend Sarah, 25 female, for about 3 months now, and I really need some advice. Our relationship started 2 years ago when we met through mutual friends at a local coffee shop. The connection was instant, we shared the same interests in music, movies, and had similar goals in life. Or at least, that's what I thought at the time. Sarah came from a fairly well-off family. Her parents paid for her college, her car, and pretty much everything else she needed. Despite this privileged background, what really attracted me to her was her apparent drive to be independent. She would talk for hours about wanting to break free from her parents' financial support and make it on her own. She had all these plans about starting her own business someday and was always looking up entrepreneurship workshops and business seminars online. When we first started dating, she was working at a high-end retail store in the mall. She wasn't making much, but she seemed proud to have her own income. She would often treat me to coffee or small gifts, insisting on paying her own way. Looking back, I realized those gestures probably came from her parents' money, not her paycheck, but at the time it really impressed me. After dating for 2 years, moving in together felt like the natural next step. We had lengthy discussions about finances before she moved in. She was still at the same retail job but promised to contribute what she could to our household expenses. We agreed that she would start with covering groceries and some utilities, then increase her contribution once she found a better paying job. The problem started almost immediately after she moved in. Within the first week, she came home crying because her store had cut her hours drastically. She went from working 5 days a week to barely getting 2 shifts. She showed me her new schedule and seemed genuinely upset about it. Being the supportive boyfriend, I told her not to worry and that I would cover all the bills for the first month while she figured things out. That first month, she spent a lot of time at home. I assumed she was using this time to job hunt or maybe work on those business ideas she used to talk about. I would come home from my IT job to find her watching TV or scrolling through her phone, but whenever I asked about her day, she'd say she had been sending out applications. By the second month, her hours at the store increased slightly to 3 days a week, but it was still nowhere near enough to make any meaningful contribution to our expenses. She started buying groceries occasionally, but I was still covering rent, utilities, internet, and most of our daily expenses. I didn't mind supporting us temporarily, I make decent money in my job, but I started noticing some concerning patterns. One day, I ran into her coworker Amy at the grocery store. During our conversation, Amy mentioned that their store was actually short-staffed and the manager was offering extra shifts to everyone. This confused me because Sarah had been complaining about not getting enough hours. When I asked Sarah about this later, she said she'd been declining the extra shifts because retail work was too hard on her back. I tried to be understanding about the back pain, but what really bothered me was that she wasn't actively looking for other types of jobs either. She spent most of her free time watching Netflix or on Instagram. Whenever I brought up job hunting, she'd get defensive and say she was trying but nothing good had come up yet. Last week, after seeing our monthly expenses hit my account, I finally decided to have a serious talk with her. I sat her down and explained that while I understood her situation, I needed to see more effort from her side. I wasn't expecting her to match my income, but I needed to know she was actually trying to contribute. She got defensive at first but then showed me her Indeed and ZipRecruiter accounts on her phone. She claimed she had been applying to jobs regularly but hadn't mentioned it because she didn't want to disappoint me with rejections. She promised to start covering groceries consistently and contribute $200 to $300 monthly toward utilities. I felt better after seeing the job sites and hearing her promises. However, yesterday, while using her laptop to print something, which she had given me permission to use, I accidentally noticed her job application history was open in one tab. What I saw made my stomach drop. In 3 months, she had only applied to 7 jobs total. 3 of those were positions I had found and sent to her. There were no applications at all in November. What made this even worse was overhearing her on the phone with her friend later that evening. My sister Katie, who was visiting, heard Sarah complaining about how I was being controlling and obsessed with money. She told her friend that I was unreasonably pressuring her to find a job when she was trying her best. I called my best friend Mike, 24M, for advice, and he reminded me of something I had completely forgotten. Sarah's previous boyfriend had similar issues with her. She had lived with him for 6 months and barely contributed anything before they broke up. Mike had heard this through mutual friends, but I had dismissed it as gossip when we first started dating. Now I'm at a crossroads. I don't want to be a controlling boyfriend, but I also don't want to be taken advantage of. I've decided to give her until the end of December to show real effort in finding a job. If nothing changes, I'll have to reconsider our relationship. I love her, but I can't help feeling like I'm being used. The hardest part is that outside of this issue, our relationship is great. We enjoy each other's company, share the same sense of humor, and generally get along well with each other's families. But this financial imbalance is starting to create resentment that I fear will poison everything else. Am I being unreasonable? Should I give her more time? How do I approach this without coming across as controlling? Update 1. Hey everyone, thanks for all the advice on my last post. A lot has happened in the past 2 weeks, and I really need to vent about everything that's going on. After reading through all the comments, I decided to have another serious conversation with Sarah. I sat her down last weekend and laid everything out, my concerns about her job hunting, the financial strain, and how her lack of effort was affecting our relationship. I made sure to stay calm and explain that this wasn't about the money itself, but about feeling like we were equals in this relationship. At first, she got defensive like usual, but then something changed. She started crying and finally opened up about why she hadn't been actively job hunting. She told me she had been working on starting her own online business selling handmade jewelry. She pulled out her phone and showed me an Instagram business page with about 200 followers and several posts showing various jewelry pieces. According to her, she had spent the past months learning jewelry making through online tutorials and had invested about $2,000 of her savings in materials and equipment. She explained that she wanted to wait until she had some success before telling me about it. She thought I would be proud that she was finally pursuing her entrepreneurial dreams. She even showed me some sketches of designs and a basic business plan she had written. For a moment, I felt terrible for doubting her. Maybe she had been productive all this time, just not in the way I expected. But something still felt off about the whole thing. I started looking more closely at the Instagram page she showed me. The jewelry photos looked professional, too professional for someone who just started learning. Out of curiosity, I did a reverse image search on some of them. Every single photo had been taken from different Etsy shops. The business plan she showed me? Copy-pasted from a free template online. When I confronted her about this, she completely broke down. Through her tears, she admitted that she hadn't actually started any business. She had created the fake Instagram page and business plan to make it look like she was doing something productive with her time. She thought if she could convince me she was working on a business, I would stop pressuring her about finding a job. That was bad enough, but it turns out she had been lying about a lot more. The same evening, I got a text from her coworker Amy. Except Amy wasn't just reaching out randomly, she felt guilty about something. She revealed that Sarah had actually requested fewer shifts at the store months ago. The manager wasn't cutting her hours at all. Sarah had voluntarily reduced her schedule to just 3 days a week. Out of curiosity, I checked our shared Netflix account activity. On the days she claimed to be at work or job interviews, she had been watching shows for hours. She had even created a separate profile named Study Time to hide her watching history from me. She would start streaming shows minutes after I left for work and continue until just before I was due home. The final blow came when my sister Katie called me. She was hesitant to tell me, but she felt I needed to know. Sarah had been borrowing money from her. Over the past 3 months, Sarah had asked Katie for small loans totaling almost $800. She told Katie she needed the money for job interview outfits and professional development courses. Katie only found out the truth when she overheard Sarah bragging to her friend on the phone about how she had scored extra shopping money from my gullible sister. I confronted Sarah with everything I had learned. Instead of showing remorse or trying to explain, she turned the whole thing around on me. She said I was being too demanding and that she felt pressured to lie because of my unrealistic expectations. According to her, expecting her to work full-time was unfair because she wasn't used to it. She told me her parents had always supported her financially, and she didn't understand why I couldn't do the same if I really loved her. This made me look back at our entire relationship in a new light. I started remembering all the red flags I had ignored. She always had nice clothes and the latest gadgets but never seemed to save any money from her paychecks. She would talk big about wanting to be independent but never took any concrete steps toward it. I had been so caught up in how perfect everything else seemed that I completely missed these warning signs. I told her she had 2 choices, either start seriously looking for work and contribute to our household, or move back in with her parents. She chose the second option but asked for some time to find a place. I gave her 2 weeks to move out. Since that conversation, she's been giving me the silent treatment, only communicating through texts about household arrangements. Her parents called me yesterday, trying to mediate the situation. They offered to pay her share of the rent until she finds a stable job. I declined because this isn't about the money anymore, it's about trust and basic respect in a relationship. They think I'm being harsh and unreasonable, but I don't see how I can trust someone who has been systematically lying to me for months. So now I'm stuck living with someone who barely acknowledges my existence for the next 2 weeks. She's been telling everyone who will listen that I'm kicking her out because I'm controlling and financially abusive. Some of our mutual friends have taken her side without even hearing my version of events. I'll update again once she moves out. Thanks for letting me vent about this situation. Update 2. Hey everyone. I need to share what happened after my last update because the situation with Sarah got even messier, and I discovered things about her that I never expected. Sarah finally moved out 3 weeks ago, but not without causing more drama. On her last day, she waited until I left for work, then took several of my belongings, claiming they were gifts from her. She took my PlayStation 5 that I had bought myself last year, my expensive noise-canceling headphones, my coffee maker, and even some clothes I had purchased recently. She left a note saying she deserved these things for all the emotional stress I had put her through by forcing her out. I was furious when I got home and discovered my stuff missing, so I posted about it on social media, hoping someone might talk sense into her. That's when I got an unexpected message from Mark, 26M. Turns out he was Sarah's ex before me, the one Mike had briefly mentioned. Mark reached out after seeing my post about the stolen items because the same thing had happened to him. What Mark told me completely changed my understanding of who Sarah really was. According to him, Sarah had lived with him for 6 months, constantly promising to get a job but never actually trying. She always had elaborate excuses, back pain, anxiety, waiting for the perfect opportunity, or starting her own business. Her excuses with him were eerily similar to what she told me. When Mark finally confronted her about her lack of effort, she moved out while he was at work and took some of his valuable items too. But here's where it gets really interesting, Mark wasn't the first. Through mutual acquaintances and some social media digging, he discovered Sarah had been doing this for years. She had a pattern. She would date guys who had stable jobs in their own places, move in with them after about a year or 2 of dating, live rent-free for several months while promising to contribute, and then move on when they started demanding she actually follow through on her promises. Mark knew of at least 3 other guys before him who had similar experiences with her. The biggest shock came when Mark revealed something about Sarah's retail job. Remember how she was supposedly working at that store when she moved in with me? Well, she had actually quit months before moving in. She never even worked there during our living together, it was all a lie. The coworker Amy I met wasn't even her coworker, she was Sarah's friend who had agreed to play along with her deception. I was so stunned by all this that I confronted Sarah over text with everything I had learned. Instead of denying it or apologizing, she actually bragged about how easy it was to fool everyone. She said guys like Mark and me were too naive and trusting, and we deserved to be taken advantage of. She even had the nerve to say that men who expected women to work were misogynistic, and she was just getting what she deserved. I forwarded these messages to her parents, who had been pressuring me to take her back. They finally stopped calling me after seeing how their daughter really behaved. Apparently, they had no idea about her pattern of behavior. They thought she had been working and saving money all this time, as she kept telling them about her various jobs and business ventures. I filed a police report about the stolen items, but they told me it was a civil matter since she had been living here legally. They suggested taking her to small claims court, which I'm planning to do, though honestly, at this point I just want to put this whole experience behind me. Some mutual friends who initially sided with her have started reaching out to apologize. They saw her true colors when she tried to borrow money from them using the same sob story she used with others. A few of them even admitted they had noticed red flags but didn't want to say anything while we were together. Mark and I have actually become friends through this experience. We both learned valuable lessons about not ignoring red flags just because someone seems perfect otherwise. He's helped me document everything for the small claims court case, and it's been helpful talking to someone who understands exactly what I went through. I'll update again if anything significant happens with the court case, but for now, I'm focusing on moving forward and learning from this experience. Update 3. Hey everyone. This will probably be my last update on the Sarah situation. A lot has happened in the past few months, and I think it's time to close this chapter of my life. I went through with taking Sarah to small claims court for my stolen items. The process was surprisingly straightforward, though Sarah tried to complicate it by avoiding service of the court documents. When the hearing day finally came, she didn't even show up. The judge ruled in my favor by default and ordered her to pay me $1,200 for the items she took. Of course, collecting that money has been another challenge entirely. She's been ignoring the judgment, and I'm now working with a collections agency to try to recover the money. Through Mark and some social media connections, I discovered Sarah had already moved in with another guy just 2 months after leaving my place. Her pattern continues, she's posting about her new life and fresh start while probably pulling the same scam. She even posted about starting a new business venture, which sounds suspiciously similar to the fake jewelry business she claimed to be starting with me. I thought about warning her new boyfriend but decided against it. Some lessons you have to learn the hard way. The mutual friends who initially took her side have all started reaching out to apologize. Sarah apparently couldn't keep her story straight with her new friend group. She told some people she owned a successful online business, told others she was a trust fund kid, and told another group she was a social media manager. When these friend groups mixed at a party, her lies started unraveling. My sister Katie finally got her money back, but only after threatening to expose Sarah's lies to her parents. Sarah had been telling people that her parents own multiple successful businesses and she was set to inherit millions. In reality, her parents are middle-class people who work regular jobs. They were shocked to learn about the extent of her deceptions. I've been focusing on myself these past months. Started hitting the gym regularly, got a promotion at work that came with a significant raise, and even moved to a better apartment. I've started dating again, though much more cautiously this time. I pay a lot more attention to how potential partners talk about work and responsibility now. Sarah still tries to contact me occasionally through fake social media accounts. Sometimes she begs for another chance, saying she's changed and is really working now. Other times she sends angry messages blaming me for ruining her life by exposing her lies to everyone. I just block each new account without responding. The whole experience taught me valuable lessons about setting boundaries and trusting my instincts. When people show you who they are through their actions, believe them the first time. Someone who really cares about you won't continuously lie to your face while taking advantage of your kindness. Mark and I still keep in touch. We've actually formed a friendship based on our shared experience. He's doing well too, engaged to someone who actually has a career and shares financial responsibilities equally. It's nice to see there are honest people out there. Thanks to everyone who supported me through this journey. Your advice helped me stay strong when I was doubting myself. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from a toxic situation, even if it means being painted as the bad guy by someone who can't take responsibility for their own actions. This will be my last update unless something major happens with the court judgment. Time to focus on the future and leave this drama in the past where it belongs.